Hey YouTube, I'm going to do a quick market review here. So we've had a bumpy last couple of weeks in the market. So the last video I pushed out, I believe, was after this dump here from Trump's tariff comments with China, all kinds of stuff with minerals. So in the video, basically what I had mentioned was that we're most likely due for a little bit of a retracement off of that 1 day sell there. Uh, Not quite a 3% reduction in price on SPY. What did we see on that? So not looking to gloat, but basically what I am seeing here is that off of the 50 here, we've had a pretty good retracement. Now we did fight quite a lot in this area, and we just last Friday had a close. I would not call this a very strong close in creation of a new all-time high over this candle. So it's a good sign. Looking at the yearly volume profile, I mentioned in the last video that we had this zone here about 665 to 660 roughly that we really needed to hold. I've been reviewing this in the Discord, kind of doing a day by day kind of a post session set of recaps on where we're at. And here I even made a couple posts on X about it, and we finally had our nice kind of close over. We did plant a lot more volume on the 14th. We had a decent pullback into the 50 yet again, and underneath this range we kind of started to test this low volume area right here. And so right now where we're at is we're back over this hump here. The value area for the year is still on the lower end. The bottom 2/3 of the yearly profile is where the value area is. As we go into the end of the year, this final quarter, we've had our volatility contracts expiration. We've had quite a lot of expiration on indexes, monthlies, quarterlies. So there's not much really left in the way here on what we could do. I'm still cautious given seasonality and other information. One thing that is providing a little bit of potentially positive outlook is that both the slow and fast SMA trends are now bullish on the S&P 100. If we look at the S&P 500, we're mostly starting to creep back up, not looking very strong yet. The NAS pretty strong, so tech definitely holding us up. NAS composite kind of still a little weak as well. So across all of these, like starting to look a little better. Russell is definitely still down. Okay, but I primarily focus on the S&P 100. It's that benchmark index that I think most serious market participants look at. Looking at energies, we're kind of fighting on some bullish sentiments, and rest of the breadth overall not too bad. Pretty strong in consumer discretionary and growth. Definitely taking those up. We're at 70% over the, and again, if you've not watched the other videos, I look at the 200 SMA breadth. So 70% of consumer discretionary holdings are above their 200. We could shorten this down. We could look at, say, the 50, for example, and we're going to see a little bit of a of a different report here. So some of these have really dipped down in this last couple weeks where we've had a kind of struggle in that area. Looking at the 20 SMA breadth, again, somewhat weaker. We're only at 58% on average. So only 50% of the market roughly is on average is over the faster trends in the market. So looking at the slower trend though, last 200 days, we're sitting at 61%. That's what I'm going to stick with. And so far, I would say so good. On that, we're seeing a little bit of stronger volume on the rising candles, which is decent. I want to see rising volume and rising price to really convince me that the bulls are in and they're buying. So TBD, we have some big events coming up this week. We've got, I think we've got FOMC on Wednesday. So I'm going to expect that Monday, potentially with durable goods, we'll have something of a move in futures on CME Open. But I'm going to expect mostly Monday and Tuesday, barring any kind of ex post from Trump or anything about China. We're not going to see a lot of movement until we get this interest rate. We're forecasting 4%. Prior, we were 4.25. So it's really going to come down to that. The other thing is we still have a government shutdown. So whether or not we receive this other data is still going to be up in the air. We also have massive earnings this week. So we got the last quarter of the year. Wednesday, we got Microsoft, Google, Meta. Okay, this one's going to be the big one. So this week, I think, is going to be, it could really be a squeeze type setup until we get FOMC, and then we're going to get potentially some volatility through FOMC, through earnings. Depending on what the government situation is, we may or may not get more data reports, which could add to this. So if you're somebody that likes volatility, potentially starting Wednesday this week could be really great for volatility. Thursday, we've got Apple, Amazon. I would say even Eli Lilly, they're not like a name brand big liquidity, but they're pretty big. I don't know that it's going to move markets, but still another decent size earnings. And then Friday, Exxon, yeah. So nothing else big tech. It doesn't look like, maybe until the week following. So this week's huge from an event standpoint, though. Definitely, if you are a day trader, you're going to want to be definitely on guard Monday, Tuesday, and certainly if you're not great with volatility, then the latter half of the week is also going to be something to watch out for sure. So that's the yearly SPY outlook here. And jumping into the overall, like the weekly profiles. So the one thing that concerned me on the weekly time frame is obviously we have this heavy topside weekly profile, and we get numerous fills on different value from earlier in October and late September. The one thing that I was really hoping to see, so we had this big D distribution last week before last, and we did not fill it. So we start this new week. We only come about halfway in. I was really expecting us to test this point of control before we went any higher, and it's just not really what we did. So the one area that I'm really concerned about, so obviously anything can happen, but this spot right here on ES, we have a cluster of single prints. It's basically from that 830 data release candle here on the inflation print. So that's a really tight range. We need to basically hold that, or I think we come back at the very least and we test this 67.75 point. And then we've got some low volume areas we could definitely continue to come back down into. I'm going to turn on the value area here for this last week. And I'm going to focus in just on this last profile. Okay, so this is our value area. So we got 67.84 down to 67.26. And then we pretty much drop off quite sharply. So that is definitely the range that we're definitely going to want to keep. And we need to certainly hold at 67.70. I mean, that's the POC for sure, and the single print range. So if we hit that and don't bounce immediately, then we're going to at least fall here. If we start to head into this value range, then I would expect us to retrace the whole thing and maybe test this impulse area down here around 6,700, which it's definitely a psychological level. So that's something for futures traders or even SPX traders. Definitely keep that on tap. If we hang around here too long, then I would expect us to continue to come back and fill this value area from October 19th, week starting, all the way back to 66.52. So keep that on watch. As far as the NASDAQ is concerned, let me go ahead and turn the daily profiles off. And it's kind of a similar setup here on the weekly profile. Again, large cluster of single prints on the profile here, 25 430 to 25, let's call it 395. If we don't immediately bounce that for higher, then I would expect us to come back down to mostly that point of control area there at 25,265. And again, similar kind of thing where we had a lower value area that I expected us to fill, and we didn't. Now we did tap the POC and come down a little further into a prior weekly value area low down here at 24,816, 815 ish. But kind of the same thing again. If we just load this last profile from the very last week, look at our value area here. We've got mostly what should be good support in this area. It's about a 70-point range. Okay, there's your price levels. So I would expect that to hold, and if not, then we're gonna come back and retrace all the way into this value. And then if we do that, let's load like the last 3 weeks profiles. Yeah, if we end up hitting this, we're real close to this value area, and we could end up coming back through here, testing this impulse move, seeing if there's any buyers around here. So definitely going to keep all the that particular area on watch. We're definitely right at all-time highs. So tonight we'll be opening here very shortly, Sunday, October 26th, time of this recording. Definitely keep all that information on watch. I mean, even the Dow, if I turn off too many profiles here, turn on the Dow here, and kind of the same thing. We're at all-time highs. The Russell is the only one that's really lagging. Okay, now Russell's been lagging for quite some time. Small caps have been having a hard time in this environment. We made a new all-time high earlier before some of the other indexes, so definitely keep them on watch. They've been a little counter to ES and the NAS here recently. Honing in on the 2-minute SPY chart, looking at the classic TWAP setup. So what we saw last Friday was definitely a very slow day. We had fully traced way beyond what's usually the max extension, third deviation from prior session TWAP here, and we're just basically hovering inside like a $2, basically like a $2 range all day. Very little tick once the morning calmed down, and I would say that's kind of the main thing is like we had this very brief moment of volatility spiking just at 29, and it is quickly retraced back to the lows. So just in 10 days it's fallen nearly 50%, 45%. Definitely going to want to keep that on watch. We could come right back up. Wouldn't take much for this market, I don't think, and the tick is going to follow. So keep the tick on watch, but I think it's going to be a lot more about macro, a lot more about earnings, and potentially any kind of random posts. So I expect our fearless leader will be watching the markets and maybe answering with responses. So that's mostly the update, folks. Just really wanted to give that yearly profile update and kind of show you what I'm looking at, watching the breadth, and just this is very important. I want to see that slow trend continue to expand back up from here. So this area plot, I really want to see that start to expand up, and I want to mostly see this fast trend continue to stay above the midpoint, but time will tell. So good luck this week. Hope you gathered some kind of value from this video. Leave a comment. Feel free to join our Discord. It's completely free. Hope to see you there. And as always, thanks for watching. Happy trading.